Why is everybody doing street photography? I took my Fujifilm XT5 out onto the street to try and find out. Street photography's got a great vibe around it, and it seems to be the backbone of so many great photographers out there. And although I'm fascinated and admire their work, I haven't really given myself a chance to really understand or try this style of photography. So this video is about my first sort of steps to try and connect with my inner street photographer, if indeed there is one. Obviously, I'd used my Fujifilm XT5, which was probably throwing its hands up in the air and crying, "Finally, I get to go out and do some street photography. This is what I was built for," seemingly. I mean, Fujifilm seems to have that link with street photography with the X100 series. But I thought I'd use my new and very impressive, very small and lightweight Viltrox 25mm f1.7 to start with, which I did a video on that lens, and you can check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. This setup was really nice and small, and I hope it wouldn't draw too much attention to myself when I was out shooting. And this does really bring up a significant issue for me personally, and I'm sure for many of you too. And that's that finding the confidence to go out and take photographs of complete strangers on the street, with the potential, and I don't know whether it's in my mind, but with the potential for sort of confrontation and making other people feel uncomfortable and that you're invading their privacy somehow. Obviously, I never want to do that. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. So part of my journey is trying to understand and reconcile this issue. So it leads me to the question, what is street photography for? And is there a justification for what feels a bit invasive at times? Here are some of my thoughts on that point, just before we get into what happened when I went out on the street, and I can show you some examples. So from behind the camera, going out into a street is such a wonderful, great opportunity to photograph wonderful, colourful characters going about their business and deep in their own lives, and you get a sort of wonderful viewpoint. Because as photographers, we are sort of observers, and having all of that photographic opportunities, it's like a kid in a sweet shop where you stood there and you can't decide what to take a picture of. There's drama and comedy and characters and incidents unfolding before your very eyes. So it's a really exciting thing as a photographer. One of the things that I didn't want to feel like is I'm photographing them, like I'm somehow different to the people that I was going to photograph, because that makes me feel sort of somehow awkward. And so I wanted to think of myself as part of what was going on. And I think this comes to my main feeling about street photography, is that it's basically documenting our times and showing life as it is. And that's really what street photography is about. It's not taking advantage of any particular group or being a sort of just a person watching. We all are society, and we're all in this world. So it's just an interesting opportunity to actually take snapshots of what is going on as we live our lives. And this feeling of trying to document the world is almost like something that you're doing for the greater good, as it were. And I would like also to try and somehow interact with the people that I'm taking photographs of sometimes. Obviously, most of the time, people are passing by and they probably don't notice you're there, and the moment's a fleeting moment, and you can't interact with them. But if people did question me or want to interact, then that's a really interesting and quite exciting development of street photography, which I know that I'm a bit of an introvert, so I find it slightly more difficult to actually interact with people, but I get joy from doing it. So that's something I want to try and develop in my street photography if I can. So is all this reasoning simply my justification for wandering about and taking pictures of strangers? Well, I don't think so, because I do really respect other people, and what I'm doing is coming from a place of respect and care about others. So hopefully that will come across in the images. I know all of this can be a bit heavy, and I don't want to put people off and be very negative. But I think for me personally, I can definitely sabotage my own desire to do street photography when I get into all the ethics and what about this and am I doing that? And I don't want to be in situations where I feel awkward or make other people feel awkward again. So I think it's just important to be aware of it so that when you go out into the street, you are respectful and have empathy for others and understand their point of view as well. Because that, you know, after all, we're all part of the same community. So that is really important, I think. So having wrestled with lots of overthinking and anxiety, I finally mustered the energy to take myself out onto the street to see if I could capture some interesting shots that look like, well, street photography. Before I get into showing you some images and talking through them and about my experience of actually being out on the street, I'd love to get this channel up to 1,000 subscriptions, as that would really help me to carry on making this sort of content and hopefully discuss some interesting topics and review some really cool kit. So if you can subscribe and like this video, it would really mean a lot. I really enjoy making these videos, and hopefully I can give you some interesting viewpoints, and really interested to have discussions with you in the comments. So, you know, looking back at, have you had problems justifying going out and doing street photography? If you felt nervous, and how you've got on, I'd be really interested to hear, and what sort of kit you use and all of those things. I mean, it'd be great to have those discussions in the comments. So here we are on the South Bank in London. There's this cool skate area that's been painted and graffitied and looks really cool. And these guys were just on the skateboards doing their thing. And I snapped the shot, and you can see that it's quite a crop. And this is one of the overriding things that I seem to find with my initial street photography, is that I don't give myself time to frame up the shot because I'm sort of nervous to draw attention to myself. Anyway, moving on to, I thought it was just quite a cool shot. Moving on to this one, which was a reflection shot with obviously St. Paul's Cathedral in the background, and it's a coffee shop inside, so you can see some of the coffee shop and then some of the people who are outside walking past. And I just thought it was quite an interesting shot to grab as I went through. This is on the Viltrox 25mm, and this was f3.6. I don't know whether this is a great shot. It's just quite interesting, these two obviously conversing and pointing out where they wanted to go or something about there. And this was shot with a more depth of field f6.4. I thought this was quite interesting. This shot is a shot where you can start making up stories. Obviously Paolo is, there's a memorial to him, and that's sad, and this guy just chilling, listening to music or whatever, and this guy walking past, and it's quite a cool scene as well. And then this one walking across the Millennium Bridge towards St. Paul's. This felt a bit invasive possibly, but this guy looked so happy having his photograph taken in front of St. Paul's. I just thought it was a very joyous moment, so I snapped this one and chose to keep it in here to show you. Again, more people on the Millennium Bridge, quite an interesting couple of characters there. This is F9, this guy taking a picture of St. Paul's, obviously me taking a picture of him and everybody walking past. So that's quite interesting, I thought. And then this family obviously looking up at St. Paul's. I just was obviously walking past and right behind them, and just thought it was interesting at that moment where they were obviously talking about it. And then you can see this girl in here pointing, obviously somebody's taking a picture of her and she's pointing up at St. Paul's. So it's interesting when you look into these pictures and you see what's going on. This is more of a sort of classic street scene as I perceive them. This businessman walking through London with the shadows of the tree on him. It looks quite an interesting shot from that point of view. And again, I've cropped this wide because it just gives me the sense of this cinematic thing that I quite like. And I don't even know whether this is street photography or just a holiday snap, but there's this sheep statue thing in front of St. Paul's. I just thought it looked cool. So I just thought I'd throw that in. This is one I was quite pleased with. I was standing there and there's the sunlight in this section, and this was all in shade. And these three businessmen and this woman were walking past, and there's quite a nice shape where we've got the sort of heads of these three in that shape going into the light, and I just thought that was an interesting form about it. Here, this guy's sitting down having his beer, and this guy's obviously having his drink, but you know, the light, the difference in the dark and light of the shade and the sunshine made it quite interesting a shot for me. In this one, these guys are obviously trying to decide what to do or waiting for a taxi or something. But yeah, again, I don't know whether it's a great shot. It's just something that appealed to me. I quite like this one because this guy in the middle and this lady are obviously getting somewhere, probably working in London somewhere. And then these two look like tourists. And then these guys are just chilling in their lunch hour or something. And there's just the interesting commentary on all the different people and nice framing with the buildings. So I quite enjoyed that shot. This is a shot in my town near me called Guildford, and I was quite pleased the way that just happened upon these two, who I don't even know whether they knew each other. They're just sitting there chilling in the sun, or chilling in the, can you chill in the sun? But in a sort of similar position. Yeah, so I just sort of found that quite interesting. And then I did a filmic render of that using Dehancer, which I've actually done a video on. I'll put a link to Dehancer down in the description. But I quite like what Dehancer does in terms of giving it that sort of analog feel and adding grain. So I just thought I'd try that. Yes, still on the Viltrox 25mm at f4 there. So here's a really interesting shot that I cropped wide again, and it looks like quite a cinematic thing to me. Interesting colours and the graffiti on the wall and just this guy coming out of the light of the end of this subway, and I thought that was really cool. So one decision I did make when I was in this subway, there was a woman walking away from me, and she was on her own and I was walking along behind her, and I felt that that was inappropriate to take a picture of her because I just felt like that was the wrong thing to do. So I waited a bit longer, and then this guy came round, and obviously I snapped this shot and felt like it was quite a good cinematic shot. And then again, I was same place looking the other direction. For some reason, I had my camera set on 1/18th of a second, which is obviously very slow. And this guy came past on his scooter. I think I just picked, just wanted to grab the shot because it was interesting. And it is quite interesting, even though there's nothing sharp about the shot, but it just is quite a cool shot, I thought. Still on the Viltrox, this f3.2, these couple of guys having their break after doing the hard work of sweeping the road. But I was quite pleased with that one. I think that is a crop again, because I worry about actually taking the time to frame the shot. I don't know whether that's the thing that I should worry about, or whether I should actually just move closer. But then I didn't want to disturb them and lose the nature of them just in their own world. And then this guy is on his market stall in the high street in Guildford, but wasn't getting any customers, so he's just checking his phone, which was quite an interesting one. And then here again, I was standing to the side of the road watching all the people go by, and just felt that it's quite a nice thing, the wide crop and everybody walking in, some people walking to the left and right, and then this woman in the middle. I thought it just looked cool. And I edited this after watching a video by Henry Turner, who was talking about making architectural images look like fine art by making the whole image slightly dark and then highlighting patches of areas with circles of light. And I applied that sort of way of working to this image, and I thought it looked quite cool. So thanks to him, Henry Turner. I'll put a link down in the description to his channel, and you can check out his stuff there. Again, this was this same market, and this guy was doing the crossword because he obviously wasn't getting any people coming to his stall. So it's quite enough, when you can put some story into the picture, that's quite interesting. I'm not sure whether this is great street photography. It just looked interesting to me, so I snapped the shot. And I do like the sort of framing of people down, alleyways and with all of the texture around them. So that's something that seems to appeal to me. And again, this guy looking very happy in the sunshine, selling his plants. And this guy actually sort of looked straight at me just as I snapped the shot of him. and I thought that was quite interesting. It was quite an interesting character, and I did a black and white version of that, which I thought looked quite interesting. I like snapping shots of people taking photographs and interacting with their phones, and these two people in the middle were obviously finding something very interesting behind me. Quite interesting the way that they were both taking pictures at the same time, and then she'd obviously taken a shot and this person thought, I need a better shot than that, I've got to take some more. So he was obviously more of a perfectionist. And then in the same sort of vein, this was up in London at a race, 10k race that my daughter was running, and all these people were filming the finish, waiting for their person they were cheering for. And then this shot, I've switched over to my Sigma 56mm, so I'm further away from the subject, and I was using f3.6 here, and it allowed me to get these guys just sitting on a bench and this lady looking at her phone. And I do like getting pictures of people interacting with their phones or taking pictures with their phones. I don't know, somehow it's quite interesting. And this is again on the f2 on the 56mm Sigma, and likewise here enabled me to get quite close to this this group of people chatting on the high street, and quite like this black and white rendition of this, and the fact that the background's quite blown out and that sort of separates them. But it was quite a shallow aperture of 2.5 as well, so it isolates the subject quite well. This was quite sweet. This couple, I was going to get a picture of them just standing there, and then they kissed at this moment, and he went off and did one thing and she was going off another. So I just thought that was quite a sweet moment, and one of those things that if you're there waiting for moments, then you come across these moments if you take enough shots, I guess. These two interesting characters walking with their bikes up the high street. And this one I quite liked, again, quite a sweet shot of this couple walking hand in hand down the street, and I shot it through this glass barrier, and just, you know, quite an interesting shot. I thought this is an f2.8 on the 56mm. This shot is down this, there's a row of shops in this alleyway, and I was standing there and taking pictures, and took this picture of this young lady walking past, and then several other pictures. I wasn't in the same place. I took several different shots from this vantage point, and then I thought it would be quite interesting to sort of merge them together, and I went and put them all in Photoshop and aligned them best I could. But I hadn't done these shots with this in mind, so it was a bit of belt and braces affair, and I had to sort of manipulate the images. But I ended up with this image that I thought was quite interesting of quite a few of the different pictures with those people, and I tried to keep this person in the middle quite defined, so she was the main subject with all these other people in the shot as well. So I thought that was quite an interesting experiment. This guy obviously taking pictures and surveying the scene. I don't know why he had a crash helmet on though, but anyway, obviously he just jumped off a motorbike. Quite interesting, this, everybody bent down, so this couple looking at their dog, this guy on a phone, this other guy on a phone, Uber Eats just waiting for his next thing. So I thought that was quite an interesting one. And I really like this one. This is again on the 56mm, and it is at f1.4. So all of these line of people are quite separated from the background. There's something about the motion. I just realised they're all standing on their right foot with their left foot. All these three are anyway. So maybe that's why they look like they're in sync. So I've sort of quite enjoyed that shot. Here I really like this as a wide crop. All these people crossing the road, and with the wide crop it seems to give you that sense of, what seems to give me that sense of motion, and the sort of prevailing motion over to the left. And then a couple of sort of character studies of people sitting just doing their thing, and seeing how close I could get. And one of the things about the Fujifilm XT5 is that the shutter is quite quiet, so it doesn't alarm people that you've taken a picture from them. So I was probably just walking and taking a picture. And this is, I've changed lenses again. This is the Fujifilm 33mm, and this is shot at f1.4. And I do like the sense of separating out the subject from the background. Again, with this lady just on the phone to somebody at the same, sitting outside a shop. And this guy has actually just come out of a phone shop, and he was checking, I think he was checking whether they put the new screen on okay, and just stopped to check his phone. So I quite like the isolation of that with the buildings and the alleyway sort of framing him. And then this shot I really liked. This lady walked towards me in the middle of the street and then just stopped in the middle of the street and started looking in her bright green bag. And I don't know, it was just the fact that she was so in the middle of the road and everything going on around her. And it's actually, they closed the road, so there's no chance of a car coming and running her over. But because she is standing in the middle of quite a wide road, there's something just interesting about it, I thought. And I did another render in Dehancer, which I quite liked, adding a bit more analog feel to it and some contrast and some nice grain. That was taken at f1.4 again, so she's nicely separated from the background. And then she did some stuff and I did some other stuff, and then I saw her just walking back off down the street again, so that was bizarre. A couple more characters out walking their dog. And then this one I thought was quite interesting as a very cinematic shot, and obviously I've cropped it wide again inside this little mall or shopping area looking, and there was obviously, they're all backlit, and I thought that was quite a good one for some black and white treatment, so I enjoyed that one. And then just a couple more of, and then these last couple, there's a river in between me and this scene and the path and the building, and I waited there for a while to see if anybody would come across, and this guy came along on his bike. And yeah, this is our shot with the 33mm Fujifilm at f4, and I had the temptation to crop it very wide again, but then all these windows make for a wonderful texture. I did try it out, I'll show you that, but you lose all that cool texture, although you have more of a focus on him. But I do like the full shot. So those were the images that I thought I'd show you. I'll just end on that one because I just like that one for some reason. So how do I feel about street photography, having actually now done some? Well, I really enjoyed it, and I loved reviewing and editing the images. There were times that I really got into the flow of things and became far more confident, but there were still times where I felt a little bit awkward. But, you know, overall, it's really given me a desire to go out and do more of this sort of photography and develop my skills in this area. I think I've learned that I really need to slow down and actually frame the shot intentionally rather than just wandering about clicking randomly and hoping nobody notices. It turns out that nobody's really aware of what I'm doing. They're all just busy doing their own thing, so I needn't feel so awkward. And if somebody does notice me, then I'll just enjoy chatting with them about the whole thing. Some of the images seem to have more story in them than others, and I guess this is part of the skill of street photography, and I'm excited to develop this and get this more of a sense of story in my images. But I suppose this will come with more intentionality, is that a word, intentionality, or more intentional shooting, so you can actually look at the environment and how it's developing and then take a shot that really encapsulates what's before you. I seem to like wide cinematic crops and also a shallower depth of field from wider apertures. So I think I'll be trying to refine these things into what hopefully becomes a sort of style of my own. I hope you've enjoyed my early exploration of this really exciting genre of photography, and maybe it's inspired you to go out and try it yourself. If you have found this interesting, please give it a like and subscribe and click the bell icon and you'll get notified when I upload a new one. Thanks so much for watching. Have fun out there, and I'll see you again here soon.